Hey everyone, and welcome to this 20th edition of the Snapchat. As always, today I'm joined by none other than Cozy Snap. Cozy, how you doing today, my friend?
What's up, man? Doing well. Just prepping down for a big week to come. Just a lot happening, man. Been in some tournaments. There's the big patch coming. Just climbing up with some fun cards to use like Master Mold. So definitely been a fun Snap week.
Yeah, you've actually been super busy doing so well in the tournaments. By the way, congratulations on your success in the tournaments. You've been doing a remarkable amount of content as well. Like, I don't know how you fit it all in, my friend. You're truly on another level. And we actually had a fantastic conversation on your side of the channel. Do you want to run us down what we talked about?
Yeah, so we talked about turn 6 surprise cards. We talked about it on the first or second episode of the Snapchat. On episode 20, we revisited, and it's a great conversation on cards that you can simply add to your deck and win more cubes. We have the best archetypes that need a little bit of love and what they could use to bump up on a more competitive level, Alex. And then, honestly, something we have to do each season for sure. The highest and lowest played cards by percentage numbers. And I'm shocked, mainly at the least played cards over the top played, Alex. But fun subject.
Yeah, it was a really cool conversation.
Yeah.
Really cool conversation.
Absolutely. So super fun, man. Excited about today's subject. What are we talking about over here?
We're going to be talking about the March 2023 token drops. We got series drops happening. Token shop lovers galore are going to be excited to be able to get their hands on some newly discounted cards. We're also going to talk about our favorite cards so far this season, the ones that we're relying on to climb among the ranks of Marvel Snap. And then finally, we're going to discuss the incoming Shuri and Thanos nerfs to those deck archetypes if they've been hinted. And we've also received hints about token shop changes. So a lot to talk about today on the Snapchat. Cozy, we've got to get started with the March 2023 series drops. This is amongst the most exciting parts of Marvel Snap for many people. The acquisition of additional cards, the reduction in the cost of cards. It's exciting. And I think the biggest splash is usually for the cards going into Pool 3, because now at 1,000 tokens, or much more like achievably unlocked by people who are Pool 3 complete, these are significant drops. So let's talk about them.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I would say this season or this series drop is less exciting than the past two because of just the cards that have dropped. 5 to 4's got some spicy picks. 4 to 3, super underwhelming. And there is one thing I want to talk about to kind of kick it off. And I think that they're going to rework this, and we're going to talk about that in the last subject, right? Black Panther came out when? The second season of Marvel Snap? That's got to be a Pool 3 card by now. The time between those two feel really off. Like, some of these feel good when they came out and when they're dropping. But I saw this and I was like, where the hell's Black Panther? Nobody's, no one's itching. We don't need to restrict him to Pool 4 still. I want to see that drop a little bit season-wise. What do you think about that before we go into the ones that did drop?
I am surprised. I kind of forgot that Black Panther's still kind of in it's Series 4, isn't it?
Still in Series 4.
Still in Series 4, yeah. So it has been a while. I wonder what is the kind of like primary factor of their decision making around this, because I don't think they've ever really told us how they make these decisions and how they determine which cards drop. They just kind of drop them.
Yeah, I would say that this drop is a result of the first drop, because the first drop came at a timely fashion when they needed to do it. Remember, it was kind of anarchy with acquiring cards and series drops. So they put all the great ones. Absorbing Man, She-Hulk, they were all in there. And I think now we just have the bottom of the barrel over here with Orca and M'Baku. But if you had Black Panther in this mix, I think it would have been like, oh, okay. Like, there's, not bad. There's some good cards here. But yeah, let's talk about, do you want to start with Series 5 to 4 or 4 to 3, my man?
Let's talk with 4 to 3, because I think that with the Series 3, I mean, I know that people are going to be a little disappointed in a sense that, like, okay, M'Baku. Right, you got M'Baku coming down. It ain't no She-Hulk. We just talked about that. But M'Baku is a pretty solid card. But the one that I think really stands out is the one you just put on the screen, which is Attuma. Attuma is by far one of my favorite cards of the season, hint, hint. And I actually think that Attuma is wildly underappreciated. I brought Attuma to a tournament. People were like, why does Ox have Attuma? And then like, boom, 410. People didn't know how to deal with it on a regular basis. I was hiding Attuma behind an Invisible Woman, because at the end of the turn, this card gets destroyed. Not at the end of the game. So it's one of those things of like the minutia of the details of the card description really works towards Attuma's advantage. I think that the major thing you have to worry about Attuma is Magneto. Magneto is a very disruptive card for Attuma, but this card is a 410. Like, armor works well with it. Again, Invisible Woman I think is the absolute best place for an Attuma. This card's good, and it's 410 power. It has presence.
Yeah, it's so funny. If you look at all the other 410s, like how they get to 410, I like Attuma in the conditions that he has to meet for the most part. And as long as Destroy's cooking and armors are out there, it's free value, absolute free value. I like him to pressure. He's great to pressure. But what I want to ask about Atuma for you, right, and I think we should always do with these series drops is who should be buying Atuma, right? Obviously, getting it in the cash is nice. Who should be spending 1,000 tokens on Atuma? And I'm not going to just say no. Well, I wanted to say nobody, but if I was looking at archetypes, if you're a big Zero fan or you're a big Null fan, honestly, I think Null is probably who. If you happen to somehow have Null, he's definitely worth 1,000 at that point. But outside of those, yeah, you wouldn't just buy for the Invisible Woman combo, would you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. So I was playing it, like, again, my tournament deck, I ran Titania, I ran Zero, I ran Lizard, Maximus. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that all those cards were going to get hit with Zero before Atuma does. So, like, Atuma, like, are you really holding Atuma for Zero? It's like, no, probably not. Like, you're really not zeroing Atuma very often. I love the Null combo.
So good.
And that had not occurred to me until you brought it up to my attention.
Love my Null.
So, like, I think that's a great combination, by the way. But I think that Atuma realistically is one of those cards that, like, I would not recommend buying for 1,000 tokens. And I mean, unless a card comes out in the future that really activates it. But as you said, like, we have Zero, we have Invisible Woman, we have those pieces, we have Null, which just dropped itself last season. So it's in an interesting spot, but, like, worth 1,000? I don't know. Remember, for some people, Arrow's 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. It's almost worse that these cards are coming down from 4 to 3 because now they have a chance to clog your freaking Mystique, Wong, Patriot. Nope, you get Orca. Like, oh, what a gut punch. I remember in one sweep, it was the summer because I was playing the beta, I got like Baron and a few other ones. At the time, Crossbones. I think I got like 3 in a row that I was just like, God, Marvel Snap hates me right now. Like, this just feels bad. And then like, I'm a positive guy. I'm like, they're out of the way. It's okay. Doesn't make it better, Alex, but these are just going to clog up your caches at the moment. So Orca, and M'Baku barely even need to be spoke about. Don't buy them. Just don't, guys. Don't be the guy that's going to try to make Orca work. Trust me, there's been others before you. He's just he's not that great.
I tried to make Orca work.
Same.
I really did. Like, I opened Orca. I was like so sad. I needed to be consoled. And I said, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make an Orca deck. I'm going to get it done. And it was not good. Like, it never felt good to play. And I think that the one thing that was happening is people were like, is this guy playing Galactus? What the hell is he doing? Like, I don't understand. But, like, I wasn't playing the Galactus pieces. So they were always very skeptical of what I was doing. So I was like awkwardly leaving a location open for like, LOL.
Well, I like that, though. What if you make a disguised Galactus deck and you don't play Galactus? You just play Orca for big power. You know,
that's a cool idea,
right? Like, you do like.
But then you just lose everywhere else because, like, what are you playing? Wolverine and
you'll
Nimrod?
have to do like the bigger. Yeah, you'll have to do like 2 big, like maybe Electro, Wolverine, and they're like, okay, it's Galactus deck, and then you like on the right hand side you do like 1 big card that they're like, okay, all right, what's happening here, and then bam, Shamu left side. What are you gonna do? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I love that you always show this like awful variant. Like,
oh,
you
awful!
Put, like,
Come on.
Dude, it looks like a person just wearing like a whale costume. Like, what is this?
Like, yeah, like Las Vegas, you can go and on the street they have these like, Elmos and different, Spider-Man.
Yeah, it looks like someone on the street in New York City trying to take a picture with you and then try and steal your phone and demand $10.
I would take a picture. Have you seen these pecs? All right, let's go to the next series drops, my man.
Orca looks like it's trying to hand you a mixtape.
Let's go to 5 to 4 and a lot more spicy options here, obviously, buddy. The ones I think we can kind of breeze by. I think Dazzler is fun. I don't know if I would buy her. Shadow King, avoid, guys. Just avoid Shadow King. He's okay. I think he's not as bad, but he's like bad. A bottom 5 card. He's not the worst card in the game. That's what I mean by not that bad. Sora, Zabu, Shayna. Who do you want to talk about first?
I mean, I would like to talk about Shayna here because Shayna is one of those cards that, like, I have literally thought about buying so many times. I know it sounds dumb, and there's no point in having like this obsession with Shayna, but like, I really want Zoo to be a thing in like High MMR. Like, I really want to be able to get to Infinite with Zoo and not be like furious and not Smurf or anything. Like, Shayna, I think, has a really interesting kind of spot because of its turn 6 potential. I have sat on this idea that Shayna could be a turn 6 card, and I stand by it. I really do stand by it. And I don't know if it's really feasible. Like, I know you have Shayna, right?
Funny enough, and this is a trigger, people, I have every new card in Marvel Snap except for Shayna. She's the only card I haven't bought.
No way.
Only card I haven't
I
bought.
just assumed you did because I know you have almost all of them.
I just bought, dude, God, guys, I tanked. I bought Sauron legit 3 days ago, and then they showed this. I was like, you idiot, Cozy. What are you doing? But no, Shayna's the only one I don't have. I played with her a lot because I do too much Coulson games. And so I do get to play with her a good amount. I think there are places to play her. The issue is just at the moment with locations and just how the decks are going is board space. That's her only issue currently.
I can definitely see that being a problem. Like, I can see board space being a definite problem with Shayna, especially since, like, you don't know what one drops you're getting, but, like, you drop Ebony Maw turn 6 out of a Shayna, like, you're laughing. That's free real estate all day long, right? But, again, it's unreliable. It's hard to build around. So it's one of those cards, again, like, I really do want to experiment with because I think it has potential. Like, this card feels like it's one of those cards that, like, we laugh about now, but, like, when it's in pool 3, then another card comes out in the future, all of a sudden it's like Shayna's a problem. Like, it could be one of those cards that really propels an archetype at some point, or it could just be dead in the water for the remainder of history. Like, I might be just totally fascinated with this card for no reason, and I accept I might be completely wrong here, but I feel like Shayna might actually be a decent card, but not worth 3,000 tokens. Like, I don't think it's worth the risk of spending 3,000 tokens. I'll tell you that right now. It's just one of those cards I really want to play with.
Yeah, I mean, not to spoil my side of things, but we already talked about Killmonger being prevalent in over like 20+% of games. I mean, that alone is like woof. I like her on turn 5 as well, or even on turn 4, because if you do get the hood and you get the -2, at least you get the demon and you can play it, right? So like, really, if you look at this list, I don't want to say Sauron doesn't have any effect. I bought him. Definitely good. Definitely a good card. Ebony Maw. Playing Ebony Maw for 1 on turn 6 is so filthy. It's ridiculous that you could play Shuri and him together and Titania all in the same turn. But out of all these cards, man, I think it's obvious, and I still think it's an incredible card that I use in, I would say, over 60% of my decks currently is Zabu, man. Zabu's nerf feels great. I think he does exactly what I want him to do. And it's not even just a discount the 3, and you can play them on 3. That's nice, Alex, but it's on turn 6 to play 2 4-cost cards. Playing Darkhawk, playing Shang-Chi together, these kind of combos really make... especially Shang-Chi, and where he's utilized right now, typically your decks are designed where you could play Shang-Chi on turn 6, and that is it. That is all you're going to have the cost for. Zabu, to me, opens up almost all the archetypes in some facets still, and I personally love the card. What are your thoughts on Zabu?
It's funny that you bring up the idea of playing 2/4 costs on turn 6, because Zabu, for me, feels like if you really want to play the 4 costs, you have a really good combination you want to play, it feels like a better Sarah. Because with Sarah, you're giving up quite a bit of tempo on the turn 5, considering that, like, you could be playing any number of high impact cards. Like, even right now, like Spider-Woman versus Thanos list is that's a good card, man. Oh, yeah. Like a 5/11, oftentimes 5/12. Like, that's a damn good card. So it's like you're giving up a significant amount of board pressure when you play Sarah, right? For that extra kind of miracle turn 6. But, like, if you play a turn 2 Zabu, like, you get to play that big card on turn 5. And then you get to play those big cards on turn 6. So I think that the end game's stronger.
I do too. And even crazier is combining the both, right? Like, you can have some insane, you don't need to, but combining the both. And if you just look at that, like getting Wong out for only 3, or Shuri for 3, or Jubilee for 3, or power-wise, man, Jessica Jones is so slept on as such a solid value card. You can get Crossbones, who I played against in some tournaments. This guy, for 3 cost, is crazy. He's a very good card. Very high stat line, obviously. We've already talked about Atuma. I mean, heck, you can even get value out of these Sentry, which is just atrocious to say. But Zabu feels like such a good building card, and if you don't play Lizard, or you don't have another specific purpose for the 2 cost, turn 2 is kind of like a whatever turn anyway. So I feel like Zabu, it's like you might as well invest into the late turns, which obviously have the biggest impact at the moment in Snap. So Zabu, out of this entire list, is the one I would spend 3,000 tokens on. Definitely not first. You got to get a lot of other cards before him, but I would spend the token premium on if you didn't get the season pass.
Yeah, and I think that Zabu's actually amazing in negative. Like, I think it's incredible in negative decks. Like, negative's kind of in a weird spot right now. I think it's one of those decks, by the way, that I probably has a lower win rate but a higher cube rate probably.
Well, definitely, yeah.
So the stats on Mr. Negative is probably tricky to kind of identify because it's one of those, like, you probably retreat often, you might lose, but like when you get those 8 cubes, you get 8 cubes, man. Like, you know what I mean? So I think Zabu really helps there because you have that double play of like Zabu Psylocke for the negative play on turn 3, which it's just beautiful, right? But yeah, I agree. Zabu's probably the king of this list. But that's not to say that Sauron's not huge. Like, I think Sauron is a really good card, and I'm interested in seeing what happens. Like, they must have a plan for, okay, they're going to be doing something to the Shuri list, the Shuri archetype. Does that give space for this Series 4 Sauron to now come in and take over in some way? Because we don't know what the changes are yet.
You are correct. We're going to talk about that in the last subject, but if they completely nuke interaction between Red Skull and Shuri, or Shuri, and whatever that might be, Sauron might get that value. Because I could say, as someone who just bought him, right, for 6,000, did he make a big difference? Yes and no. I think that when I drew him in my hand, it gave me another reason to snap. That's the one thing I like about him. If I get him, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to snap. Why not? I have the pieces I need. Typically, in a Shuri deck, you're going to snap when you have Shuri. Now you have 2 snapping reasons, and that's his biggest impact. You have 2 ways to win. You're going to have a 50% chance to get one of the 2, probably, right? So that's where I like Sauron. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't play Shuri lists. I find them very boring. And it's not my favorite thing to play. But if you are into the Shuri lists and you do play the 0 kind of archetype, yeah, I would go with Sauron for sure. He's pretty solid.
Yeah, it does seem like a very, very good card that does a really good job, but it's also super limited, right? Like, it's also a card that I think it's gonna get better. It's gonna age like fine wine because, like, as you start to incorporate more ongoing cards, some of which are gonna have negative impacts, this card just gets better, right? It's like, it's actually at its worst technically right now because you have the least amount of synergy, but like a year from now, you're gonna have even more synergy, right? It's just gonna get better.
Yeah, there's definitely gonna be more like negative cards that come out per se, right?
Yeah.
That are gonna want to utilize this in some capacity. And I'm interested to see, kind of what those are. But yeah, those are the main ones for the series drop, Alex. Shall we move to our favorite cards this season?
Absolutely. I'm always excited to talk about our favorite cards of the season because there's been a lot going on. Now, naturally, we've had changes to the way ranked matchmaking is working. So you have that additional 50 cubes that's giving you a little bit of a kickstart after you hit each individual plateau, which is great. And because of that, I've been experimenting more. I feel like the stress of ranked has kind of been eased a little bit. So I'm a little more willing to experiment. And as I said prior that, I've been getting, I'm near infinite, not quite there, I'm probably in a couple days or so. I've been using discard to get there. I've been using ramp to get there. I've been using my boy Devil Dinosaur to get there. I've been actually legitimately enjoying the ranked experience. And so I think that's a key thing to take away. And I got some cards, Cozy, that have been standouts for me, and they just continue to be standouts. So I'm going to start with number 1, and we're going to go by costs, everybody. So we're going to start with our favorite 1 cost of the season. We'll go 2, 3, 4, all the way to 6. Cozy, my favorite 1 cost of this season thus far is Ebony Maw. I can't get enough of Ebony Maw. And I mean, talk about Sauron, synergy, but, it works well with 0. But the thing I love about Ebony Maw is I think one of my favorite deck archetypes is ramp. And when you play that Electro and you play that, Dr. Doom, and then you play that Odin, Ebony Maw is just sitting there like, oh, you thought it was just me.
He does a lot, and I think he serves in way more purposes than people give him credit for, man. Like, even just Vipering him over, you're going to restrict your opponent from playing in that lane, and it's only a 5 power makeup. It's really not that much. I think that's a combo that's underutilized. It's kind of hard to pull off. Or if you don't do that, yeah, dude, 7 power, that presence, you only need to win one other lane, right, to have that priority just, like, kicking most of the game, dude. I like this pick. This is a good one for sure. And this isn't, like, our best cards that we think in each cost. This is more of our favorites for the season, right, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I love about this card, too, is, like, I'll be streaming, and people watch me throw him down turn 1. They'll watch. I'm just like, boom, Ebony Maw turn 1. They're like, man, you could hold that for this. I'm like, you don't need to.
Yep.
He's okay.
Yep.
Throw him right into the unrevealed right location. Boom. I don't worry about Ebony Maw. He'll do his job.
That's a fun pick. A very fun pick. And Sauron, like, I almost could pick him just with the Sauron love of him. Like, there is not a soul that predicts Ebony Maw on turn 6. Like, it just doesn't happen in turn 5.
You just can't. How do you can't account for that?
No, it's so fun. I mean, you see a Sauron maybe, but people don't. I can tell you from experience, people don't. Mine's close. Mine is close. And kind of a common theme here, both high power ones. It doesn't come close. The biggest impact 1-cost card that I think if you take your time to learn, you will fall in love, Alex. Not only you, the viewers will as well. I'm doing my sales pitch. Titania is my favorite 1-cost card, and it doesn't come close. Titania is so fun. I would say that she might be one of the best right there with, obviously, Sunspot and whatnot. There's been tournament plays that I've done with her. There's been ladder plays at very high level. Titania, if you can master you got to do a little mind reading, but if you can master her playstyle, which I finally have gotten comfortable with doing things of, sending it to the opponent, playing another card, getting her back. I've done some crazy things with her, and now that I've been comfortable playing her, now I'll tell you this, though. The way to get comfortable is by playing her, and it's a rough road because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But she is, in my opinion, one of the best one-cost cards currently with her control ability as well as just her pure power presence as the last card played on turn 6.
I love that you bring up Titania because it is absolutely a card that I've been experimenting with. Once again, at the New York City in-person LAN, I actually brought Titania, and I used it in conjunction with Zero a lot, which is great. I used it in conjunction with Invisible Woman, which is a little trickier because it will actually bounce end of game. So it's usually the last card you want to play, Invisible Woman, but also you can just play it last on turn 6 anyways, usually, and you're usually fine. But what's funny with that, Cozy, is you actually hit a nerve with me. Not a nerve, like you hit a chord of my heart, because in the New York City tournament, I actually lost and got relegated to the lower bracket because I misplayed Titania.
It'll happen.
It was a mistake I made. I don't remember the exact circumstance of it. I expected her to bounce, and she didn't, because it was some interaction with Dr. Doom, it was Sinister London with Dr. Doom, and so she was on the other side, and I needed her to bounce back, and I played Dr. Doom into Sinister London, and I thought that she was gonna bounce with the Dr. Doom, but it was Sinister London, and then the Doom replicated and then filled the location, because it reveals the Sinister London and Doctor Doom first, and Titania didn't bounce. So then the location was full, and my opponent, Nina, had the Titania stay and then played a card and beat me, knocked me out of the higher bracket.
It's one of those things, and it's not even like you do it and you're like, oh, I learned that. You're like, well, what the hell just happened? And then you're like,
it was crazy.
When I was playing Dexter, I did this, and I still probably attribute this as one of my better plays I've ever done in Snap. And it was playing Carnage and Titania in the same lane, but I did it in a way that I would send Titania over, eat my cards. She came back. He had Juggernaut, and I knew that. In Juggernaut, moving effects happened before anything else. So when he played Juggernaut and Titania was on my side, she didn't go back to him. It pushed both of us to the other lane, and it ended up winning. And we often talk about 1 power nerf, 1 power buff. If you send 5 power to their lane, they're going to typically win. That's enough to break whatever's probably separating, and that's why she's scary to play. But man, if you can master her, bro, really, really good card here, especially if you want to play Zoo. That's probably the most we've ever talked about 1-cost cards, but I love it, man.
There's a combo we got to talk about, though. Before you leave Titania, it's the Green Goblin combo.
Oh, it's so good. So
how good is that? Oh my God. You send 2 cards over and fill their location. So it is a thing of beauty.
Love it. It's so good. I've used it plenty of times. And even just using her outside of that, where they have 2 cards in the lane and you're like, they're definitely going to play a card here. I'll just play Titania. Yeah. I have priority. And then they fill it up. And then you, on the last turn, can play another card and just take her back. It's so good, dude. So good. 2-cost cards. What's your favorite 2-cost this season? All
right. So this is going to be a wild one, because it's one that, it's not fancy, but I really have been enjoying, and it's been like an acquired taste, one might say, and that is Sentinel. Sentinel. Now, I know you're thinking, Alex, Sentinel, really? A 2/3 that just jumps back here? Now, obviously, I'm a Devil Dinosaur enjoyer. I'm always going to be. If you go to my channel once every at least 2 weeks, I'm going to have a Devil Dinosaur deck out there, because I just love the archetype, and I'm always playing Sentinel. But the thing I love about Sentinel, what I've been doing, is I've been playing it in Rampless. Hear me out. You think I'm crazy. I know you're like, Alex, seriously?
Maniac.
I've been playing Sentinel and Rampless because what's been happening is that it gives me a consistent turn 4 play in the event I do not draw my Wave or Electro, which ironically, based on my luck, is pretty much every single game. So what I usually do is I have Lizard and Sentinel. If I have both in my hand, I play Sentinel on turn 2, hold Lizard, because if I don't have Wave or Electro on turn 4, what I'm able to do is I'm actually able to play a Sentinel and Lizard. And on turn 3, I would have played Sentinel again. So it gives me this curve, which I know that sounds really come on, Alex, that's so far-fetched. It's not.
No,
Sentinel just replicates your hand. It just keeps replicating, and it gives you this consistent play for when things turn into a complete nightmare.
There's a reason that he's in Sarah control, because he's such a steady curve power play. And there's also a reason why yes, I think Master Mold is one of the best new cards that come to the game. You're not just giving him bad cards. You're giving him 2 Sentinels. And I'll be honest, guys, Quinjet and Sentinel is freaking ridiculously good. On top of that, you also have, obviously, like you said, Devil Dinosaur. Just having constant barrages. 3 power, man, is no stacking that up can get a little bit crazy. I believe it. I like Sentinel. I think it's always just a good card to have. And I love that it's your favorite and perfect season to have him as your favorite 2-cost, Alex. And
it is, too. It's pretty flavorful.
Rampless, too. Never thought of it. I like it. Very interesting.
Yeah, like ideally you don't want to play Sentinel and Rampless, right? Like let's be honest. Ideally you don't, because usually with a Rampless, I play a ton of Ramp. You're not snapping and you're retreating if someone snaps if you don't have Wave or Electro in hand.
Yeah.
And even then you prefer Electro, really, right? But what I've been doing is like I don't want to just lose those 1-cube games. I'm trying to get to infinite. So what I want to give a secondary condition for me to like Sentinel and then Sentinel Lizard on turn 4 for when things hit the fan. And you know what? It often does. And then you know what? You're on curve. You play your 5, you play your 6, and you have a chance to win the game.
So for my 2-cost, Alex, it is really not even close this season. It's Beast. I think Beast is right up there with just he's such a low investment to give you an archetype within an archetype for the most part. And having cards like Iceman to kick him back, multiple Iceman, I mean, obviously Master Mold, not a lot of people have, but at the moment I'm playing Black Widow, Iceman, Korg, and I'm beasting those back, playing them twice. It is so disruptive. It's disgusting. Especially if you Master Mold them and then Iceman. Then those Sentinels they just got, they can't even play them. Just really, really good card. You can also play Black Widow again, and then you could play Iceman and make that Widow's Bite cost more. There's so many little plays you can do with Beast. And currently, it's competitive. I think it's a tier 2 deck. It's right up there with some of the better ones. You can make some really strong ones with the low-cost cards. You do have to build the deck just right, but what's enabling that deck is going to be Bast and building decks around Bast with things like Angela, Bishop. And I got to tell you, Alex, with Kitty Hawk coming, Kitty Hawk's about to make Bounce even better with the way that she works in general. You can do things like Bounce Back Deadpool. And then, yes, you kill him. You do miss out killing him one turn, but now he's a free play. So there's really interesting mechanics with Beast, and I think there are so many ways to play the Bounce archetype for the future. You can do Dagger, Iron Fist, take them back, or Iron Fist and Human Torch, take them back. Play them both, 0 cost, and all of a sudden you get big power on that last turn, and that's where I've been playing Beast, and really, I would say a majority of my... Look at this. You can see my decks above. Beast, Bounce. My Master Accuser has Beast or Bounce in it. Bounce deck. I have so many Bounce decks right now. He's in the majority of them. Definitely my favorite 2-cost, bud.
I love head games. I love the fact you have a deck called Head Games.
Can you
show us what it is there?
Yeah, it's my tournament deck. It's cut off a bit, but it's... and I did make...
It looks good. I like it. Oh, Nimrod, Arrow, Null,
So
Galactus.
these two weren't in there. Nimrod, Null, and Galactus weren't in the tournament one because I didn't want to have those cards in there. But this is essentially... This entire deck is about... making them question things, and Kang plays a big role into that. Arrow, and then Galactus I put in there just because it's another head game. I have a lane empty. Am I going to go with a Professor X, a Galactus? And it's all around Daredevil just being a broken card, dude. But
yeah, I love your deck design. They really are really unique, and I love the Daredevil and Kang. Like not once but twice, I'm going to give you a headache and make you completely fearful of everything I'm doing. So two potential like snap situations: snap Daredevil, snap Kang. You know what I mean?
He's mean. It's a mean combo. Definitely, I think Control is still at such a good place in the meta right now. But let's go to 3-cost cards. And Alex, favorite 3-cost. What do you think?
For me right now, it's Wave. I mean, Wave is one of those cards that I always go back to as being one of the most OP cards in the game. And I love Wave because of its combo play with specifically She-Hulk. I think that Wave She-Hulk is by far one of the best combinations in the game. You can literally combo it anyway. Like I've been doing Wave She-Hulk with Arrow. It's just such a natural thing. You cut the death out of it, right? You're not playing a death wave list. You wave, you conserve 2 energy, and now you have She-Hulk at 2 on turn 6, and you have the 4-cost Arrow. What's your opponent do? You literally just play She-Hulk into a location you need to win and arrow them into garbage lane that you don't care about. Like Wave is a masterful play on turn 6. And the more I think about it, like I think the Death Wave combination, because you get that third death, like the third card in Death, feels a little more like difficult. But Wave, like you are only playing 3 power on turn 5. Yeah. It's Leech. It's right. Leech, except it gives you the additional card the next turn, right? Because the She-Hulk doesn't work if you use that extra 2 mana.
Funny that Wave was it's such a good combo. She was pigeonholed a bit into that, but there are more ways to use her outside of just like ramping or Galactus. God, if I see another Galactus player like just telegraph so much more clear than with Wave. But even Ronin, I was like using Ronin decks with Master Mold. I was like, wait, Wave constricts them from dumping their hand on turn 6. Like I might as well just dump my Ronin, and play Wave. It's crazy. Like, she has way more utility, and definitely, what is she, the 11th most played card? So clearly, people realize how good Wave is, and I don't think she's going to change. Maybe her interaction with cost stuff, but we have not seen it change yet, and I would be shocked to see one at this point, this far in. 3 cost I did find difficult, Alex. I think 3 cost was one of the more difficult ones to try to find because Mr. Fantastic's so fun for priority and things like that. But if I were to limit it to one, and it is probably because I've been doing tournaments, and a lot of the people that know me well know who I'm going to pick, I got to keep going back to him. I got to keep going back. I think really where I enjoy Snap the most is head games. And Agent Coulson is a big piece of head games. You just don't know. You don't know. I have Agent Coulson in any tournament deck I can draft. He's in there. No question. Having the ability with him and Quinjet or him and Zabu, and you guarantee have a huge discounted card, and you have to think on your feet. And I think it's honestly one of the great things about being a content creator is I look at these cards every day. So I know how to play with these cards a lot, right? And looking at where I can fit them in the situations. And 4 and 5 cost cards are so good. I have a blast with Agent Coulson. And, combine that with Devil Dinosaur to even have more craziness. But he's definitely far and few between my favorite 3 costs.
I love Coulson too. And he's one of those cards that, like, I want to set aside and really try to build, like, a real banger list with. Like, you're right. He is by far one of the best cards in the game from a fun perspective. Like, we talked about it last week, fun factor. Agent Coulson nails it.
Yeah.
It nails the fun factor, but it also has the competitive factor of, like, yeah, like, if I'm playing against you 1v1 in a tournament, I have no idea what you just pulled. And, like, realistically, wow, you pull Sentry. Okay. That's the one, like, what? There's, like, what, maybe 2 cards you don't want? Like, there's, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's cards you use all the time. They're always good.
I can confidently say that the results aren't out, so I can't talk about it, but I can confidently say Agent Coulson beat Leech plenty of times because I anticipated Leech plays. I didn't have priority. I played Agent Coulson. I got Leech. Boom. 2 new cards in my hand, plus the card I draw in. Screw Leech. I'm fine. I'll figure it out. Like, there's a lot of ways to make him work. Alex, if you want to get started, if people want to get started, have Zabu, have Quinjet in the deck, get that discount already, and then build around that with other 4-cost cards is where I find them the most useful. 4 power, you don't even feel like you're missing out on that much as far as that's decent, pretty dang good for 3-cost, right? Polaris, we love, and she's 5 power, so just a good play. Great card. Always go back to him. Love him as a 3-cost. Let's move to 4-cost.
All right, in the 4-cost, originally I was going to talk about Atuma, because I think that Atuma is an excellent card that is really, really good. It obviously has a lot of synergy, and it coming down to Pool 3, I think it's going to get into the hands of many people. But I want to give a shout out to another card that I think really goes underappreciated, and we kind of touched on it, and that's Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones is one of those cards that, like, honestly, people aren't playing. And I think it's one of those, like, things where people are like, oh, that's a beginner card. That's a card you get when you start. It can't be that good. Are you kidding me? Jessica Jones is a very consistent card. And if you go back to, like, actually a card that's fallen off as well as Storm, but Storm Jessica Jones is a tried and true combo that sets up a lot of power into a location that you generally won't have to worry about afterwards. Its condition is easy to play around. I think Jessica Jones might be one of the cards that as a community we kind of sleep on. Yes, you can find 10 extra power in Atuma. 2 extra power. You can find 2 extra power in, like, the Typhoid Marys. But, like, it doesn't get easier than Jessica Jones.
Damn you, first of all. Like, I had her locked in as my choice, brought her up earlier, and then you sweep in and pick her. Yeah, dude. I was going to talk about it, too. I think Jessica Jones is slept on. The only con with her is if you pull her too late, then obviously you can't get the 8 power. But outside of that, she's great. Storm's not good right now because the freaking Reality Stone, Space Stone, doesn't matter if you flood it. They just move there anyway. That's the problem with Storm. Jessica Jones still has that value. Guess what? Crossbones, still a good card too. These 8-power cards under the Shang-Chi limits are slept on. They're very strong. They're hard to figure out. Your opponent then has to commit power to that lane rather than a cheap win with a tech card. Very, very, very good card in Jessica Jones. I enjoy her a ton. If I were going to pick a new card instead of Jessica, I don't care.
Sorry, buddy.
No, you're good, dude. It's awesome. I love that when we pick the same ones, right? It's a no question. But Alex, instead of just Jessica Jones, Darkhawk I want to talk about as someone that got nerfed down. And okay, I'm picking a Pool 4 card. I really don't care, guys. Just like Shuri, everyone's kind of bought in. Darkhawk to me feels like the perfect card, man. I love it. I love Darkhawk to death. And I've been playing a metric load of this card because he fits in as another win condition to so many different decks. You can make him work. Yes, you need to somewhat commit to him, You can do Korg and Beast. You can do just Rock Slide, typically enough. Thanos, man, I am beating the hell out of Thanos decks with Darkhawk. You got to play him early, obviously. You could do Armor if you're scared about anything happening to him. Enchantress, non-existent in the meta right now. Rogue, pretty much non-existent as well. Darkhawk, to me, feels like one of the best cards in the game at a consistent level, and personally is what that I've been climbed with huge success this season, and I just make them work. Make them work. A Devil Dinosaur, I'm telling you, Rocks and Hawks is one of my favorite decks. It's one of my tournament decks, and if you're thinking about buying them and you want a strong card that's just a win condition, it's Darkhawk. And let me tell you, Alex, lastly with him, one of my favorite things is, dude, this guy's the MVP for things like Asgard that pop up. No one can outpower this guy on turn 4. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I love Darkhawk lists. Like, I love the disruption element of it as well. You're playing Korg, you're playing Black Widow often, you're playing the the Rock Slide. Like, you're just dismantling their hand, right? It's just so punishing to their hand. And it ultimately is a card that does require some deck considerations. You can't just be like, LOL, I'm just going to throw in Darkhawk. Because, like, if you don't have those disruption cards, if you're not filling their deck,
he's a 4/4,
then, like, it is really underwhelming. But we talk about that 4/10 kind of being that baseline, high-impact, 4-cost consideration power. And, like, it hits 410 very straightforwardly. Like, it gets to 410. And I love the idea of using Beast. I love that idea.
Oh, you only need to use Korg and Beast. And then on top of that, dude, there's things that the opponent, I'm telling you, I feel so bad for so many people that I play against, because you could play Darkhawk in a lane. And if Lucia Gula, I can't say it, I'm going to even, I botched that. Subterranea, Vibranium Mines, they play into those locations. You can commit nothing in those locations, and you just know if they play in those locations, you won. For the most part, you won, because your Darkhawk Mystique combo is going to be so off the charts. So listen, Zabu, Agent Coulson, Darkhawk, that alone in the deck, one of my favorite things to do, because you have a lot of things going with the forecast.
I have a question about your Darkhawk decks. Like, how are you finishing Darkhawk turn 6 then? Like, are you playing him out on turn 4 and then Mystique turn 5? Like, what's the end game look like in a lot of your Darkhawk lists?
Yeah, it's very linear. It's very straightforward. If they have a leech or I anticipate a leech, you play him early. You got to play him significantly early. If I need to play him to win location advantage that I need, I play him there as well. If it's Galactus, I'll save on to him. If it's anything else, most of the time, it's Zabu coming out on 2, and I play him and Mystique on 6 almost every time. Him and Mystique on 6 is definitely up there as well. It just depends on how it works. Right now, I'm playing him in Master Mold, who I think gave him a bigger boost than Ronin. It's 2 Black Widows, if you will, and so having Darkhawk played early, and then you can either Mystique or Ronin. There's a lot of kind of options with him, but definitely I would say it's that combo on 6, or play him early if they have a way to deal with him.
Yeah, and how does it compare to, like, the Shuri list? Like, are you able to compete with those lists effectively with Darkhawk?
Depends. It definitely depends on the lane, and that's what I think I was referring to it when we were talking about Zabu earlier. The fact that you can play him and Shang-Chi both for 3 if you have Zabu on the board is how I'm beating Shuri decks consistently, because it's pretty obvious what lane they're going to play that card in. So I'll Shang-Chi it, and I usually don't have the priority at that point because I don't have my big cards out. So they'll play it, I Shang-Chi, Darkhawk in the other lane, W. So that's typically how that works out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I love the explanation as well. And it goes to show you, again, it comes down to Zabu, what we just talked about in the series drop. Like, Zabu activates a lot of these combinations, specifically with the Shang-Chi as well. Let's talk about number 5, Cozy, our 5-cost cards of the month here. My favorite that I've been playing this season so far has been Vision. And Vision is one of those cards that I know you love. I can see the smile.
It's been a while, too. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and it was funny because I was never really a big Vision fan, and now, I mean, you kind of convinced me. You've done this a couple times. You convinced me on Electro. Now Ramp's my favorite archetype, alongside Devil Dinosaur. And then Vision, I always used to pick Captain Marvel, and I still love Captain Marvel, still my waifu. But, like, at the end of the day, Vision's an extra 1 power. I control it, and when I do play Shuri, for science, I have to know, when I play Shuri, I actually prefer the Vision. Sometimes I'll pick Vision over a Red Skull. Like, I think Vision is such a good card. Like, that mind games, like, and you can still Taskmaster it. Like, you still can Taskmaster it. Like, it is such a good card. And I think that when Vision's on the board, especially with how restrictive a lot of the locations have been, like, it's just, your opponent's just like, what do? I just leave. Like, it's kind of like one of those, like, you get a lot of retreats, honestly, with it, especially when you Shuri it. Like, I still think that Red Skull Shuri is still better.
Yeah.
But I'm saying don't sleep on, like, if the nerf comes down and Red Skull Shuri isn't the thing anymore, Vision is probably the next up because it's a great card.
It is, man. It is. It was one of the tried and true like Shuri combos for a while, just because of the mind games, the head games, so strong. Not to keep bringing up tournaments, but there's one that I win a match because of Vision very, very well, because it's just, where are they gonna play him, or do they even move him at all? And that's what's crazy. And again, it goes back to locations, man. Locations getting closed down. You need Mojo World to fill an extra spot. There's a lot that Vision can kind of be utilized in, and definitely a great card. For my 5-cost card, Alex, it's got to be Leech, man. I think.
What are you doing? You trying to get this video like downloaded into oblivion or what?
Uninstalls from the podcast, hitting us up. All right, guys, it is not Leech. I won't, as much as I want to pick Ronin too. He's so new with the Master Mold. I'll hold back on the Ronin. Funny enough, this is probably one of the more like top tier cards I'm going to pick that I usually don't pick. It's Sarah this season. I just have a fascination with Miracle decks. They're so fun to play, and I'm not talking about Sarah Control. Great deck at that, especially there's like a Zabu Darkhawk build for that. But Sarah on 5, there's better and better are we getting these kind of crazy low-cost cards. And the fact that I can now play Sarah and I can play Ronin for 4, and then I can play Black Widow for 1, and I can play Master Mold for 1, and all of a sudden I added 3 cards to their hand with my Ronin that went out. There's so many little interactions with him that I think is so much fun. Or Sarah, and now you can also do the Darkhawk and Mystique, and you don't have to worry about the combo that we just talked about. So a lot of great ways to play the card. Love Sarah, and I think Miracle decks are at a good spot finally. And that makes it enjoyable to play, in my opinion.
One of the things I absolutely love about Sarah, and something that I just don't get sick of, is that Sarah does something really special in Marvel Snap, where like we have this big emphasis on like the big turn 6 play, the big 6 drop, the Magneto or whatever it is, right? But Sarah gives like the cheaper cards, the 4-cost, 3-cost, 2-cost cards, a place in turn 6.
Yep.
Like it gives them a place in turn 6 where like you can have a high impact rogue play where you take the Devil Dinosaur for 2 energy. And it's just like, it's crazy. Like Sarah has that ability to be completely game breaking. And it's crazy how like people, it used to be the card, the best card in Marvel Snap, 5/5. It goes to 5/4. And then it had its resurgence with Silver Surfer, but I'm still telling you, I think Sarah is a beautiful card that does a lot of magic in Marvel Snap. So I'm glad you picked it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's definitely one, when cards drop back out of the meta, I get excited because I can just go and play it again, just to keep things fun. 6-cost, man. Let's wrap it up here. And 6-cost, favorite 6-cost card, hit me.
My favorite 6-cost card of this season so far has been, without question, She-Hulk, with a special honorable mention to Giganto as well. We've actually talked about Giganto prior, but I gotta tell you, She-Hulk and Giganto, I know I'm cheating picking 2, but it's been both, because when I'm being highly competitive, I always turn to She-Hulk. I really do. I always turn to She-Hulk. But in the current meta with Leech, Giganto has been too good. Like I'm being totally honest with you. Giganto, it's like, it feels like Infinite in your hand, except you can play it confidently on turn 6. You just a little bit of like kind of a macro play consideration, but when you get Leech, you're just like, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels good, and it takes frustration out of the laddering experience. And it's just a good card, and no one's going to account for it. It's a surprise card that's going to hit hard on turn 6.
Yeah, with She-Hulk, one thing I want to say is I do see people placing her in decks wrong, and mainly that's like she can be placed in any deck. So don't get confused with versatility versus playing her in a more smart deck. You want to make sure that you have reasons to skip turns with her. You want to make sure that you have those plays available, because if you don't, you're not using her to her max ability. And so having those 5-cost big impact cards, obviously Arrow and her are great, but if you don't draw Arrow, then you have the She-Hulk. Yeah, you can play her early, probably going to get Shang-Chi'd. So the reason she's good is she is the 4/10 with no drawback, and that is great. But I would say probably load it up a little bit more with 5-cost cards, or just make sure that you know your winning conditions and the ways to play her. But dude, she is crazy. I mean, for a reason. She's one of the most played cards. Such a good card. Definitely love the pick. And also, funny enough, I'm actually going to be picking more of a top-tier card myself this season as well for my favorite. And it is Magneto. No question it's Magneto. Right now, I think this guy sits at such a good spot. And he's just crazy, man. The amount of games I've won with Magneto on a regular basis, moving things out of the way, is... I feel like right now he is a surprise card, but he's got to be on the top end of just people not expecting it. I don't know why the Wong player is never expecting me to move the Wong and screw him up. Or the Venom. I did one the other day. I didn't arrow his Arnim Zola. I just did a little bit of Magneto, move that Venom to another lane, and he just was sitting there, right? And then if you can't do anything, like, okay, I guess I'll just get 12 power on an important lane. So Magneto has been slotted in and is a card that I think could fit into pretty much any deck.
I agree 100%. I play Magneto whenever I can, and we discussed it last week, the idea that, like, you almost always take Magneto over Hulk. Like, that disruption is so incredibly valuable. Moving 3 and 4 costs to a location, like we just talked about, like, that could be, if it's a Crossbones, that's a lot of power. That's 8 power. Swing it over to another side you didn't expect. Yeah, you might like not trade out with that Crossbones and Bishop that you just dragged over, but it doesn't matter because you've just disrupted every other lane. And so like Magneto is just such a good card. And the one combo I really wish was a little better is the Kingpin Magneto. Like as you get into the higher MMRs, it just doesn't work. Good players know you fill the Kingpin location. It's so obvious, right? But like, damn, when it gets pulled off, it feels so good.
Throw in Juggernaut, though. Throw in Juggernaut with your Kingpins, and don't play Juggernaut for your Kingpin. Play Juggernaut on your Kingpin lane the turn after you play him. Because people immediately try to fill that lane. You hit them out of there, and then they have 2 more turns, but then what are they going to dedicate every single card to that lane? So usually you have 1 spot open, and then if you have the 1 spot open, you know they're going to play in that lane, so you just play in the other lanes, and then you switch your win condition. That's probably the best way to play Kingpin at the moment. So Alex, they've tweeted it out that Thanos, Shuri are going to get adjusted. And it wasn't just the cards. They talked about the decks, right? And so that kind of opens up the landscape of what could get adjusted of Quinjet. Are we going to see the Stones? Are we going to see Shuri, Red Skull? What might happen to them? But all I know is I'm glad it's both of them because you can't do one or the other. Then it's even more linear on what deck you play. Do you even know in what would they do? What do you think they're going to do with the nerfs?
I think their communication was highly specific in that they said that they're attacking the deck archetype itself. They're not attacking any individual card. They didn't say like, oh, we're going after Shuri. We're going after Thanos. They're saying we're fixing these decks, right? These decks that have kind of been like mastermind and like figured out, right? So I love to see that because I think that like Thanos, for instance, it's not a problem at like the 6'11". If you move it to 6'9", with Shang-Chi, like that even might be too much of a nerf. What I think you're probably going to see, if I had to make a guess, is that the Stones start in the deck. They're just in the deck. So now the Quinjet effect doesn't actually play a role, so it reduces that Lockjaw free engine you get with Quinjet, Lockjaw 3 plus every single stone, plus all the draw you locate, like you basically achieve from that play as well. Because that's where I think Thanos goes wild. When you have Quinjet on the board.
Shuri, I think, is more difficult. I think Thanos is really easy. You do the stone thing. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's not Quinjet, just the stone thing. They're going to do something to leech anytime the public outcries for so long. Maybe it's not this patch. It might be next one. But if they do even stones and leech, done and done. Shuri is complicated. I'm going to be very curious on what they do because no matter what they do with Shuri, it's going to be impactful. Something's going to happen to either Red Skull or Big Power or whatever. You're right, because it's not the cards. It's the archetype. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do Shuri. She's way more complicated to fix. And they're not going to remove her ability. That's going to stay. I can almost promise you that's going to stay. So I'm very curious about that one. It is, with those two, though, being adjusted, they're well over 60% win rates, right? I'm so pumped for the meta after that.
Yeah, me too. That's the major thing we all want. We all want a fresh meta. We want people to be able to experiment again because these decks are really strong. They're really oppressive. And I wonder about Shuri. You're right. It is by far the most difficult. One thing I will kind of disagree with is I bet you they don't touch Leech. Yeah. I bet you Leech does not get touched because if you leave Leech as it is, but you adjust its ability to come out from those stones as frequently, I think they can get away with testing the waters, with not nerfing Leech directly here, and just allowing the stones to remain at 1 cost with the Quinjet.
But you can still time stone on 3, and then on turn 4 you Leech, and that's I think one of the bigger issues. It's telegraphable, but I think. Here's the thing. I hate to say it. They're slow. They're very slow with these buffs and buffs and nerfs. And I just think it's going to take. I think it's too complex, and it'll come in the next patch. Maybe it's not this patch. I don't know. Last time everybody went crazy on Leech. It's half my comments. They adjusted it, and so I will have to see. I do think he'll be adjusted, if not this patch, next patch. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can see it happening, but I would be surprised because I think that if you nerf the Thanos stones, you might be able to get away with leaving Leech for another round. What we don't have right now is like for Shuri making it complex is we don't have like an ongoing card that has like the Valkyrie or Shadow. What's his name? Shadow King? I can't remember his name. He's so irrelevant. What's his name? The Shadow dude.
Shadow King, yeah.
It is Shadow King, yeah. So Shadow King, we don't have an ongoing card that has that because an ongoing card would dodge the protection of armor and of the Cosmo, right? So that is it's like a hypothetical card, so not actually a solution. But I guess the next point of conversation here would be the token shop changes because that's huge. Like, okay, we all know that Thanos and Shuri decks were going to get fixed up. We know that, all right? And I'll let you guys debate in the comments what you think will happen, right? But I think that the token shop changes are significant. Now, they did adjust their wording because originally it sounded like they were going after card acquisition, which made me think about like the actual collection track. I thought perhaps they were going to make some changes to the collection track, but now they've kind of clarified their language and they're making suggestions that it's the token acquisition and the token shop itself. So what kind of changes, Cozy, do you kind of want to predict that you think you might see with the token shop specifically?
I want to have low standards, I think is what I'm going to do. I like low expectations. In life, don't have high expectations because if you don't, well, you can. But if you don't, you're never going to get let down kind of thing. I think it's going to be lower than we think. I think we're going to see maybe either a featured card spot and then we might just get either one or even two additional token swap spots that might be available so that you have multiple options. Like at where I'm at, that's worthless. Like, okay, I have Shayna and I have my two like variants. Cool. It does solve the issue of the new cards coming out. I can get them, whatever. That's great. The Token Tuesdays are fantastic. My God, those have been great for just the token system. I think we're gonna see kind of like part one, and part one is just gonna give us more card options to pick from. But the thing is, they've said now, even Ben Brode said, I think in February's thing, oh yeah, we hear you on the new card stuff, right? That's the token shop I want fixed, but the card I want to know. They've got to address the pool 5 thing. There's like I hope. I don't want to say I don't think they're going to do it. I just don't know. I just think they've got to address every new card going into pool 5 is so it's just bad. It just doesn't work. Let's call it what it is. We've gone now. We're in March. It's time to call it what it is. Clearly, it's not working. So I think that they need to figure that out. And I hope it's in this patch, bro. But for now, I think it's just going to be like a multiple option token shop. It sounds realistic.
Yeah, I can see that being the case, right? And that makes sense. And I think you kind of nailed it on the head, Cozy, when you said that like we're probably in the first iteration of many, right? Like let's give them a chance to provide like incremental improvements, right? If they do a complete rewrite of the whole shop, then like God bless. But realistically, what we're probably going to see is an incremental improvement over what we already have. We could start by allowing the like a featured card drop to just have like Mr. Mold. I've not seen it. It's been like 2 days. I've not seen Mr. Mold. Or Mr. Master Mold, I should say. But I've not seen them. And it would be great if like I could click that button and like I could buy it just straight up. Like it was just an option to buy straight up. It would reduce some of that frustration. But even so, like that's assuming I have 6,000 credits, which I do because I'm scared to spend them. I have like 15,000 or something. I'm literally scared to spend credits, okay? Or tokens, I should say. I spend credits all the time. I'm scared to spend tokens because it's so hard to get them. It's so hard to get new cards. And it's giving me this like fear of like that no refunds that pops up stops me every time.
I think
after my super scroll.
But the cards have been a lot of new cards have been so lackluster that I'm not scared because I just know what's worth buying. I feel like, right? Like, and I get it. Like, dude, I just lost 3,000 tokens. I have 4 day difference on 3,000 tokens. Like, I'll never get back for Sauron. But like, I feel like it's like you just have to tame like the experimenter in you because I know you're like me, like Shayna. I think I can make Shayna work, right? But if you just do like the tried and trues, like. Dead honest, like this isn't listing all of them. January could just not exist. Doesn't matter. Those new cards are mostly irrelevant. Sadly, those are the ones I dropped. Stature, good card. King, good card. Master Mold, done. Obviously, Noel and Darkhawk are good too. But like those are the surefire big buys. And so if I get those, great. Upcoming though, it's tough though. Like Kitty Hawk, right? Like, do we get Kitty? Negasonic, let me ease you now, bro. You're buying Negasonic. I'm gonna make you buy Negasonic. She's gonna be insane, dude, as a tech card that can also do other things. But I think because they're And I don't want them all to be good. Definitely not. I think that's a big issue. But because they're not game-changing, I think it's easier to spin tokens, in my opinion.
And I still think that my idea about test driving a card in your shop.
Oh, hell yeah.
It come on, like it would just satisfy so much of my desire to just give Shayna a test drive. Give me 5 games. Give me 5 games. Let me, not even 5 games. Let me play the card 5 times, right? Like, you know what I mean? Let me play against a bot. Let me just play it in like against nobody. Let me just play the card down. Let me experiment with it. Give me something.
Exactly.
And I think that could be a valuable addition. But I do think that the token shop test system, like that test drive that I kind of piloted a couple days or weeks ago, I should say, is a decent idea. But with that being said, Cozy, there are clearly a ton of changes coming to Marvel Snap. And you know what's going to be even more exciting? It's going to be next week and the week after, because we're going to continue to see more changes, and our favorite game's only going to get better. And I've got great news, Cozy. You know what that is?
Tell me.
It's that if you want to see more Marvel Snapchat, you can catch it right here in the middle of the screen where we have Cozy's video linked right there. You got to definitely check it out because we're talking about the turn 6 surprises, deck archetypes we think need some love, and of course, the highest and lowest played cards in Marvel Snap. Cozy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, buddy. Appreciate it, man. Guys, 20th episode. We'll see you on the next one.
Love you all. Peace.